I've been focusing mostly on watching the home games that they play, in the stadium to get the ambiance of how the crowd reacts and all that
Yeah.
too. So it's been really it's like I said, it's a learning experience, but I'm enjoying it because I'm a sports fanatic.
Mm-hmm.
So I always our life. So now I've got it's like it's a new toy for me, just something new to learn and play with. So I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 79 of A Yank on the Footy. I'm Craig Wessels from Sandusky, Ohio, and I am thrilled that you are listening. In this episode, I had the absolute pleasure to sit down and talk with fellow American, and I think I can safely say the newest AFL fan in the world, Jim White from the state of Georgia. And Jim and I had a great conversation. He and I have been trading emails for several weeks now. I am, quite frankly, as we go into the episode here, I am humbled by what was said during the course of this discussion. It was unsolicited, and I absolutely cannot believe the kind words that Mr. White had for me during the course of this, and I cannot thank him enough. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to him. I'm looking forward to doing that again. I'm looking forward to hearing more about his progress at becoming a well-versed footy fan, which he certainly seems as though he has the passion for that, and that's exciting. So, I'm really excited about this episode, okay? And I hope that you are as well. I hope you'll enjoy it. If you happen to be out on social media, I know he is on the Aussie Rules Football USA page there. So by all means, if you're there, reach out, connect with him. He loves this game. Okay, he's recently discovered it, but as you're going to hear during the course of this interview and this discussion, the passion that he shows is absolutely wonderful about this game. And if we could get more people to show that kind of passion about the game, one, I think we'd have a lot more fans, and I think this would also help gear us towards the goals of the Footy 5000 plan. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before I dive into the episode, though, I want to encourage you to consider signing up for the email list. Okay, there's a link for that in the show notes. You can sign up. It's just a couple questions. Puts you on the list. Gets the podcast in your mailbox as soon as it comes out. Okay, I'd also like you to consider, checking out the Buy Me a Coffee page as well as the storefront on the Redbubble page. Okay, the podcast storefront. And I have to admit, as I mentioned in a previous episode, I sold my first shirt. Well, you're about to hear from the gentleman who bought it. So somebody in the state of Georgia is going to be repping the podcast here in the very near future. And I'm hoping he'll send a photograph so I can share that out on social media. Okay? Now, before we get into this a little bit further, though, I hope that, when you listen to the podcast, you'll share it with your friends and family. But one thing I wanted to get into, and I forgot to mention this during the course of our discussion, I'd mentioned to Jim, he was a little concerned about trying to find some West Coast Eagles gear due to the significant cost of shipping to get things sent here from Australia. And I had mentioned to him, well, there's a store in the here in the States that's run by this great guy by the name of Wayne Kraska down in Georgia. And I gave a lot of Wayne's biography as far as the clubs that he's been involved in, that sort of thing. But I didn't mention the name of his store. And I feel dumb because I blanked on it at the moment. So I want to make sure that I mentioned that here. And, I just wanted to toss it out there. It is playaussie.com, PLAYAUSSIE.com. If you're looking for balls, if you're looking for gear for your club, this is where you want to go. And it's shipping from right here in the United States from the state of Georgia. So you get it much more quickly and at a much more reasonable shipping cost as well. So I want to make sure that I mentioned that there. And ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed the episode. It was a heck of a lot of fun. And like I said, I was humbled by the time we finished this discussion. And I think if you listen through to the end, you'll understand why. And I'm getting that way again right now because I can't believe some of the things that were talked about. And I hope you'll enjoy this as well. And I hope you'll consider sharing it with your friends because this episode might convince your friends to come back and listen to more episodes as well. So enjoy, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and glad to be back. I have another guest during my 2021 club by club preview session, but this one's going to take on a little bit of a different twist than some of the other ones that you may have been listening to. I'm pleased. I'm excited. I'm thrilled to be joined by Jim White, who is, I think it's safe to say that he's a relatively new footy fan. I'm going to let you, I'm going to let Jim here in a moment, tell you about his route to becoming a fan and which club he supports, that type of thing. But suffice to say, those of you listening in Australia, you've captured the heart of another American with this beautiful game. So, Jim, I'd like to welcome you to the show. Thanks for coming on, sir.
Well, thank you for having me, Greg. It's my privilege to be here.
I appreciate it. It's I love talking footy, and you are one of I think you might be the first person that I've had on the show who is new to the game. So this is a new thing for me here as well. How long have you been a fan of the game? How long have you been following it here?
September of 2020.
So you're still under warranty.
Yes, I'm under warranty. The ref is still on me.
All right. Terrific. So how did you come to discover the game? Because I'm guessing you don't have anybody that lives nearby that's knocking on the door and saying, "Hey, come over and watch a game."
No. I was listening to Dan Patrick Radio one day, and I heard an advertisement for a new show on the channel called Aussie Rules America, and it sort of intrigued me. And just a little backstory, I've been a little put out with American sports. We talked briefly about how players seem to price themselves away from common man. So I kind of had quit watching sports in general. So when I heard this story about this new radio show, I listened to it, and I was very intrigued by Eddie McGuire and Brian Taylor. And then after the show, they played a previously played game, and I loved it. I loved the action, and in my imagination, it sounded like ants in a stirred up ant bed at first, But then as I listened to it and separated, I just said, "There's so much action in this game," and then I started watching it on Fox and ESPN, and it started making sense. And the more I invested myself into learning about the game, the more I love the game. I mean, I'm just totally enthralled by it.
Yeah, and it once it grabs hold of you, I don't think it's going to let go. It's supplanted pretty much all of my sports watching in my in that I have during the summer. And I'm a huge Cleveland Indians fan, but as I was mentioning to somebody else today, the company that runs like the Fox Sports Ohio and all the different Fox Sports, channels around the country, they haven't reached a deal with YouTube TV. So we don't even have access to the Indians games right now. And I, quite frankly, wow, I don't think I'm going to miss them.
Yeah. Well, as long as footy going on, I don't think you will, because it's just a very exciting game. Like I said, I'm 56 years old, and I wished I'd learned about the game, many years ago, so I could have been enjoying it for several years. And it's just gives me something to look forward to. Now, I happen to have a really sweet. Didn't mind me spending the money to watch AFL.
Go ahead. You kind of broke up there a little bit.
Oh, I said I happen to have a very sweet wife who did not mind me buying the Watch AFL app, so that's helped me a lot.
Now, have you convinced her to sit down and watch a game with you?
No, she doesn't care a thing in the world about it. She'll sit in there with me.
Okay.
She doesn't care.
Yeah.
She's happy to let me be happy. So
there you go. Yeah, I have not been able to convince my wife to watch a second of the game. And she's somebody who became a baseball fan because she thought that player X or player Y was really cute. So she became a big Grady Sizemore fan about 15 years ago.
I remember Grady.
Yeah. So I thought, you know what, I would try something. So I actually found a couple websites somewhere online that had a whole bunch of pictures of players from the AFL who were out training, but they were at the beach. So they were in their just their swim trunks. And I thought, you know what, I went ahead and sent those to her. She still hasn't been interested in watching it all. So I'm not even going to push the issue anymore. So it's
that wouldn't work for me either. I'm too studly.
Well, that is not the case here for me. So I'm one of the reasons I like the AFL is I'm kind of shaped like the ball. Yeah. So it's so you listen to Brian Taylor and you listen to Eddie McGuire for some episodes of that show, and you got the app right around that time then, or did you just get that just recently?
I just got it recently.
Okay.
And I wanted to join, get a club membership, but at the time I wasn't quite sure because, like I said, initially I started out following Collingwood, but I'm not a Dallas Cowboys fan, and when I learned that they were the Dallas Cowboys of the AFL, I found myself leaning towards their arch rival Carlton, and but even that I had many years ago I had an opportunity to go to work in Perth as an apprentice electrician, and I turned it down. And I'd never been away from home. I was barely 18 years old, and so I turned it down. And I've often regretted it, but I had some family who had an opportunity to go to Australia in the 70s to become sheep farmers. Basically, they were offered some homestead land, and I believe it was in South Australia, and something happened that tragically prevented them from going. But so I have some ties to Australia.
Yes, some ties to it. So may I ask, how did the opportunity for the electrician's apprenticeship come up? I mean, I would say you were living in Georgia at the time, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I could see you getting an offer for an apprenticeship in Atlanta or Valdosta or Augusta, but Perth, Australia is just a little off the beaten track.
Well, here's the thing. I'm a very outgoing person. And at the time, I was in very good shape. I was about 6'3", 215, very, very good shape. I was trying to play football at Georgia Southern. I had broken my foot not long. Well, no, this was before I broke my foot. But anyway, I was in very good shape. And the guy saw me, and he had this accent. And I kind of smiled. I said, "I like your accent." He goes, he said, "Well, I like yours," talking about my Southern accent. And we talked briefly, and he told me, he said, that they needed young men to come over and work. And he said they were having trouble finding people and, get enough people. And there was a little catch to it. There was a 5-year tax-free offer, basically to go over work tax-free for 5 years. And the incentive was to try to maybe go over there and marry and stay over there and become a citizen and pay taxes, I guess. Because
right.
I'm an old man now, so I was 18, so I don't remember all the details, but it was a unique opportunity.
Yeah, that it's similar. I'm a teacher, and when I was trying, I subbed for, I was a substitute teacher for 2 years, could not find a job, but I had actually accepted a job in Costa Rica at a like a private school that half the day the kids were in school, and their lessons were in English, and the other half they were in Spanish. 3 or 4 days before I was supposed to leave for that job, I got called about an interview for the job that I have now. And I got hired for that job, so I never went to Costa Rica. So yeah, we would have very likely not been having this conversation, or you would have had to have brushed up on your Spanish for us to be having this conversation had I ended up there. So, and
I probably have a much different accent too.
Yeah, and I don't speak a word of Spanish, so that would have been a bit of an issue.
Me either, senor. Me either.
Yeah, exactly. So who did you end up settling upon? And that's not the right word. Who did you choose to support?
I chose the West Coast Eagles, and I think I sort of alluded to it. I went to Georgia Southern, who are also the Eagles, to play ball, and because West Coast Eagles are in Perth, and I had studied up on Perth back all those years ago when I was contemplating going, and I didn't immediately tell the guy no. I asked him if I could have a couple of days to think about it, and we didn't have the internet back in those days, so I went to the public library and did some research on Perth, and I didn't even know where Perth was. I didn't know it was on the east side, west side, dead central Australia. So anyway, my affection for Perth, my affection for the Eagles, and the fact that like me being a new fan, they're fairly new to the AFL, in the history of the 150-year history or whatever. AFL.
Right. That's true.
And also because of where they're located on the west coast of Australia, the time helps me out a little bit and able to watch some of their home games, depending on when they start them, obviously. But because they're 3 hours behind, they start a little bit later sometime, and that helps me. I don't have to get up at 3 a.m.
So
I get up every.
Go ahead.
I get up every morning at 2:30 to go to work. So on the weekend, it's kind of nice not to have to get up so early.
Wow, I thought I got up early when I get up at 5. Wow. Yeah, which
about a 30.
You have about a 30-minute drive to work.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
I'm going to guess there's not a lot of traffic.
Well, you'd be surprised. There's 10,000 people building this nuclear plant right now, and so I pass quite a bit of traffic.
Okay,
but not as much as you'd think. But yeah, quite a bit. So
what have your impressions of the Eagles been so far? What do you what are your thoughts after having watched some of the games? Have you made the right choice?
Well, yeah, I think I did. And it's going to be a growing / learning process for me because, again, unfortunately for me, as like many of the Australians who have a tie to teams from birth, I'm having to learn. So I'm having to acclimate myself and learn about the history of the team. And also, honestly, I probably could have picked any team out of the hat and developed an affection for them by learning their history and all. But I chose the Eagles for some silly reason, just because, like I said, I like the name Eagles. But like I said, I could have easily went with Carlton because I like their uniforms. But yes, I'm acclimating myself. I'm trying to learn the history of the team. I'm trying to become more knowledgeable about the fandom and the supporters, because I found out that they've got the largest supporter group, for example, and I think that tells you a whole lot about them right there. That if you got the largest support group, then you're pretty well liked.
That's true. That's true. Well, but they also have less competition for supporters in Perth than the clubs in Melbourne have, though.
That is true. That is true, but when they're fairly new, like I said, their history, they're like 34 years old. So
yeah.
And their history, Perth probably had some footy fans that, prior to that. It's kind of like Tampa Bay. They can't establish a good fan base in Tampa Bay for baseball because spring training was always held in Florida, and other teams. Actually, the Yankees and the Red Sox far outdrew the Rays when they come to Tampa, and I'm sure Perth had their fandom for other teams too. So the fact that they've established a good foot, is something that's impressed me a lot.
Yeah. So you said you're watching games from last year right now, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So
I am.
Who has watching the game so far, who has jumped off the screen at you and said, wow, this is somebody I'm going to be looking forward to watching a lot in the future?
I hope I don't butcher his name, but Nick Natatui. Is that
Nui?
right?
That's pretty close. Natanui. That's pretty close. Yep.
Yeah. He has. He's a lot like me, and he's a little bit taller than me, but size-wise, that's how I was built when I was younger. And,
okay.
And that's the way he plays reminds me a lot of the way I tried to play gridiron football. Always on the go and try to be disruptive. And I played linebacker and things. I even tried to play pro football for the USFL Bulls.
Okay.
But Larry Zonka told me I was too small. So.
Well, you are.
Yeah.
You are officially an Aussie Rules fan if you're referring to football here as gridiron. So that's step one. I don't even do that very often, unfortunately. And
well, I was a big rugby.
Okay.
Yeah, and so they refer to it as gridiron. That's where I actually started it.
Okay.
With my face. Yeah.
So did you play a little rugby as well then?
No, I never did.
Okay.
But I was enamored by it before I got hold of Aussie football because they're rough and tough. I've heard you often talking about them on your podcast, which, by the way, not just because I'm on here, but I thoroughly have enjoyed your podcast. I started listening to your show in December, so I went all the way back to January and started your first show, excuse me.
Yeah.
And started listening to them. So out of your 75 podcasts that you've had now, I think I've listened to 64 of them. So I'm working.
Wow.
I've already heard the last few, but
yeah.
But no, I would highly encourage people to promote your podcast, yours and Stray Footy by Frode, because they help new people like myself learn the game, but they're also good for people who've been around a while. You have some very interesting guests from Australia that are very informative, and I don't think it matters if you're new to the game or you've been around for 70 years. You can learn something, and that's what we're here for.
I'm very humbled by that. Thank you. That is, I truly appreciate that. And it's, I try to, I'm doing mine on definitely a shoestring budget. I mean, I am using about I think it lists, I bought mine used, but it lists for about $90. The microphone I'm using, it's not a fancy one. It does a decent job. I'm using an old laptop computer and the free recording software that's on there. I actually just had a message pop up from somebody who I interviewed the other night, and they said they were listening to the episode that I just released today, and they said that the audio repeated itself after the first 4 minutes. It jumped back, it went back to the beginning of the episode again. So I'm going to have to go back and edit that out and re-upload that here in a little bit, because it's a one-man show. So it's not perfect.
Shows like yours, you got a passion for it, though, Craig, and just like Frode, he's got a passion for it, and a couple of other podcasts I listen, and I when someone has a passion for something, you can overlook some of these flaws here and there because it's the message you're putting out. It isn't always how it's put out. It doesn't have to be streamlined and perfect. It's the fact that you're getting it out there that I appreciate so much.
Well, I do have one podcast that I will recommend to you. Well, there's several that I think you would love, but if you're going to want to learn about the history of the game, there's one called the Kick to Kick podcast, and it's I think it's a husband and wife and one of their friends that do and I had them on the podcast. Well, I had them on the podcast last year, but they basically, each episode is 1 year of the VFL and eventually to the AFL, and they basically cover that year in one episode. And they started back in like 1897, and they are up to 1955 or 1956 right now. So
Wow.
it's fascinating. They have on their website the books that they have that they reference, and it's just hundreds of footy books, related books, that just is fascinating to see all of the source material that they work from. And it's an extraordinarily well researched podcast. It really is. I mean, they're very impressive, and there are a lot of fun ones out there that laugh a lot at what goes on in the games and such, and those are enjoyable as well.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Like I said, I've downloaded many different types of AFL related podcasts, and I've thoroughly enjoyed them. But like I said, I've listened to two particular ones, and yours being one of them, and religiously the last few weeks. And
thanks.
I've really, like I said, it's really helped my knowledge of the game and give me more exposure to the business side of the game. I've heard all kinds of things. It's just a good podcast. I think it's a must-hear podcast.
Yeah, I think that as you start to look at this team, more closely, and as you start to get more familiar with it, Nick Nat has had, last year he was pretty healthy. They managed his time on the grounds quite a bit, and last year was so unique because the teams went into the hubs. And the teams in Victoria, they left in June, and they basically didn't come home until the season was over in October. They were either up in Brisbane, Gold Coast, or flying to Perth or Adelaide to play games. They didn't go to Victoria. But you got some dynamic players on their side that I think you're really going to love. There's a player that used to be with the Cats, Tim Kelly, who's a terrific midfielder. You got Josh Kennedy, who is a great goal scorer. And if you haven't noticed Liam Ryan yet, he wears uniform number 1. You will notice him. This young man is, I know he's taller than this guy was, but he reminds me a little bit of like Spud Webb in terms of his ability to jump. He takes some what they call speckies, spectacular marks that are just phenomenal, and you wonder how is he able to do that. And it's and like I said, he's just a really, really young kid. So there's another 8, 10, 11 years in his career. He's 24 right now. So he's got, probably another 8 to 10 years in his career. But his, he's kicking about a goal and a half every game, and just making plays that a lot of players wish they could make. So I think you're really going to love watching him. So, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I said I can see it. I said I've enjoyed. I've been focusing mostly on watching the home games that they play, in the stadium, to get the ambiance of how the crowd reacts and all that too. So it's been really, it's like I said, it's a learning experience, but I'm enjoying it because I'm a sports fanatic. Mm-hmm. So I always our life. So now I've got it's like. It's a new toy for me, just something new to learn and play with. So I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
Let me ask you this question here, and I don't know. Do you happen to have Amazon Prime?
I do.
Okay. In March 12th, so next week, they did a kind of like the thing that the NFL did, where they would take the cameras at HBO. They go to training camp. What is that? Hard Knocks, I think they called it. that type of thing. Yeah. But they did a series last year. They recorded these things last year where they followed several players, a couple coaches, that type of thing around the league with this really crazy mixed up season. And I think it's like an 8-part series that they're coming out with called Making the Mark. Yeah, Making Their Mark. And that's going to be on Amazon Prime on the 12th of March is when that comes out.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you told me that. I'll make sure to look that up.
Yeah, and I think they're let's see. I know they followed around somebody from Adelaide. Let's see. The Nick Nat-Nui was one of the people they followed. Stuart Dew, the senior coach from Gold Coast. Stephen Caniglio from GWS. Eddie Betts, who plays for Carlton. He played for Carlton. Went to Adelaide for a number of years. Went back to Carlton last year. He's in his early 30s, so he's towards the end of his career. But if you get a chance to see Eddie Betts highlights, this gentleman kicks goals from angles that you think there's no human way possible that he can do what he's just done. That it shouldn't be possible to happen. And then also Rory Sloan from Adelaide, and then the president. I'm sorry, the head of the Richmond Football Club, a lady by the name of Peggy O'Neill, who actually is born and raised in West Virginia, and married an Australian.
Yeah, she was interviewed on the Eddie McGuire show. So that's another reason that I got more interested in it. I heard an American lady was running a team. I thought that was just fantastic.
Yeah, it's very cool, and it's I'm really looking forward to this. I'm really looking forward to telling my friends who are not footy fans about this and say, check this out. And now you'll know why I keep talking about what I've been talking about.
Yeah.
And, hopefully this will drive the point home. Yeah. So you do you think, and again, I know you're fresh into this, but are the Eagles going to be playing finals this year? Are they going to get into the top 8?
Well, all the experts, and I put that in air quotes, seem to have them a little on the downside, saying the window of opportunity is closing. And again, because I'm not as knowledgeable as I'd like to be, although I'm a little more knowledgeable than I'm going to give myself credit for, because I did a lot of studying on several teams. But I believe they're a top 4 team. I can't say if they'll make the grand final, but I do believe they have the potential to be a top 4 team. I think Richmond, until somebody knocks them off, Richmond is king of the hill.
Yeah, I think so.
But I think your Cats and perhaps the Bulldogs are the other teams to make the top 4. If I had to pick a top 4 right now, I would put Richmond first, probably Geelong, then the Bulldogs, and then the Eagles.
Okay.
The top 4.
Okay. Yeah, I'm still working on my my ladder that I'll put out before the season starts. But I've been so busy in a good way with doing interviews. I did. This will be the 4th one that I have done that I have to put into an episode. So I have 4 episodes that are going to be ready to go in the next couple of days, and I've got 2 more interviews tomorrow, and 1 on Saturday and 1 on Sunday right now as well. So it's there's going to be a lot of them coming out here in the near future.
Yeah, I'm probably going to make a few Port Adelaide fans mad. I forgot about them, but like I said, there's several good teams, and that's what makes the competition so wonderful to watch, because there's several good teams, and then just about any time a mid to not so good team can come up and put a hurting on a good team, out of nowhere.
That's true.
So that's one of the things that's just so interesting about the game.
Yeah, that's very true. I think that that if people gave this a chance and looked at it, and if they had a little bit of an idea of the the rules of the game, so they had a concept of what's going on. I don't think you cannot fall in love with this game. It's just, the people that haven't fallen in love with it haven't discovered it yet.
Yeah. Well, I think some things that would help folks. So obviously, the more exposure you get to it on television, the better. But I tell you something that would help me a lot is finding gear. And I was going to order some stuff from the AFL website, but it was going to be like $70 to have it sent to me. So I wish they sold more of their gear in America.
Well, you do have a place in Georgia that does sell quite a bit of footy gear. I'll send you.
Where's that at?
It's run by a gentleman by the name of Wayne Kraska, who is Australian, and he founded the Australian team, the Australian rules football team in Atlanta, I believe, and now he is associated with I believe they're called the Rome Redbacks, which is in the USAFL as well. I'll try to find that link for you. But yeah, they don't have a huge selection. I think most of the stuff that they do is they're kind of the go-to store for the clubs that are here in the States for buying footballs and that sort of thing. But they've got hats, and I think some Guernseys, some jumpers, that type of thing for I think every club, scarves, that sort of thing as well. So they've got a few things, but then there are some places that the shipping is going to be a little high, but then you have to keep in mind if that's probably in Australian dollars too.
Yeah.
So because the Watch AFL app was $109. For me, going through the club was $190 Australian, which was I think $141 US.
Yeah. That beat the 165 that I paid in US dollars for it.
Yeah.
But
so next year you definitely want to get your membership through the club, because it'll be about $25 cheaper. You'll get some club gear. Now this year, most of the clubs you had to pay a little bit for the shipping, so the shipping might cost you a little bit more on that. Last year I got a hat, a scarf, a bumper sticker, a lanyard, little, hey, I'm a membership ID card thing. They cut a lot of that stuff out because of the huge financial losses last year. Yeah. But if you still wanted the scarf or the hat, whatever, you had to pay to have it shipped there. This year, Geelong gave us, instead of that, they gave us a $20 online gift card to use in the team shop. So I've got $20 to spend there right now, as soon as I get permission to buy something. But I think you'll find it's cheaper to go through the club, and again, that money ends up going to support the club then too.
Yeah, and that's what I want to do. I plan to do that this next year.
Yeah, it's great to to be able to because to have that member because I'm looking back in my computer right now, and I've got my Cats 2020 member sticker right on there, and I have, I think I've got about 8 footy related bumper stickers, on the back window of my car. So, people see the game, here, or at least when they're behind me in line somewhere, waiting for a traffic light, they'll see a little bit about the game.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, again, I didn't want to expound on it too much, but maybe some other time we can talk. I do think if we could take advantage of the gridiron fields, even if it means reducing the number of players from 18 to 15 or maybe even 13.
Right.
There's something to give people exposure, because I am hearing where people are playing the game, but just the lack of fields make it very difficult to do it in a, where you can have crowds and have amenities like that,
and a lot of the things are a lot of the games that the USAFL teams play, they actually will go and rent a space in a public park, and then they'll paint the oval on, they'll paint the lines on and play there. They'll do their practice, on those grounds. They have portable They have portable goal posts. You know, they're not nearly as tall as the ones that we see on television, but they're portable ones that can will collapse down and go in the trunk of your car. So, it's and it's a great group of people. I've been able to talk with a lot of them. I've been involved in a few Zoom meetings online with them as they're trying to grow the game. The big thing they're pushing right now is what's called Footy 5,000, where they're trying to get 5,000 people in the U.S. playing Aussie rules football. And there's now 50 teams in the U.S. And it's crazy because I talked to the gentleman who started there's a second team in the Dallas Fort Worth area called the North Texas Devils. And he said, that, we were talking about the Footy 5,000 thing. And he said, we have 3,000 people just here in the Dallas Fort Worth area that play rugby.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's an uphill battle, but it's a game that is, I think, I would argue it's accessible to maybe more people because, rugby is a much more brutal game, I think.
Oh yeah, it's very brutal.
Yeah.
Just, yeah. But I do think the more exposure that people can have to the game, especially with your younger people,
right,
that would help them want to watch the game and learn more about it and all that. So, like I said, I hate to change the set of from 18 to something, but to make use of the available fields might be something to consider until we get more is suitable for 18 on 18.
Yeah, exactly. And I it may happen, but I think if the game's going to grow here in terms of people playing, I think they're going to probably have to resign themselves to playing in an open area, where they've painted the lines down themselves, and the friends and family are sitting around in the folding chairs watching the games. I think that's probably what's going to happen, but there was supposed to be this year, but unfortunately the pandemic screwed all that up. There was supposed to be a regular season game. I believe it was supposed to be round one between GWS and Essendon, played in Los Angeles. That it was supposed to be an actual regular season game played in Los Angeles to try to bring exposure of the game, more of the exposure here in the States.
Where are they going to play the game?
They have, I guess there's from what I had heard, there is an area out there that is built and designed as a cricket ground, which that's these stadiums generally will share between cricket and footy, because the footprint is comparable in terms of the area that they're utilizing.
Yeah. What I was told, the history, according to the history of Aussie rules football, was to help cricketers train in the off season.
Right. Yeah, that's what I had heard also. And it's, and I think you end up with the a lot of kids having to make that decision between whether or not they were going to try to go on and play cricket professionally, if you will, or to try and play Aussie rules football. So yeah, it's a it's nice to have both of those things that kind of dovetail into one another, to be able to do those things.
Yeah.
So it's
I've heard you talk about.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You talk about cricket. I'm sorry, I interrupt. I like cricket too. I think it's a good thing though to be able to serve both sports. So if some fields are developed in the United States, that they could be used for more than just football. But I'll tell you, as much as I've enjoyed watching a few cricket matches, I watched some of the BBL, Australia's Big Bash League, but it doesn't compare to Aussie rules football.
Yeah. I don't understand cricket. I think I would have to watch it a little bit more to really get a handle on it. But it looks interesting. But it's I have given myself so many distractions with this now that I don't know if I could do any more than that. Maybe once in a blue moon I could check it out, but yeah.
With the attention span of a lot of young people, though, I think this game, the Aussie rules football, is good for someone with a short attention span because there's so much action. You can't help but stay focused because
that's a good point.
It's extremely interesting. It's just some. I've just enjoyed it.
That's a really good point. Yep. So, you've would you say you've fallen in love with the game yet?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Almost to the point of feeling a little silly because I like it so much, and so here I am, a 56-year-old man, crazy about a sport I've never played before, but it's just very interesting. I enjoy watching. Like I said, I love athletics and I love competition, and I particularly love team sports.
Right.
And this is the ultimate sport. It's the ultimate team sport.
So when all of this pandemic stuff dies down, and people feel more comfortable about inviting friends and family over to their house, who are going to be the first couple of people that you invite over to the house to watch footy?
So probably my sons, a stepson, a couple of grandsons. They'll watch anything I want to watch, I think.
Okay.
So I'll bring them and try to introduce them to the sport. But mostly, to be honest with you, I'm a lone watcher because where I live, I'm not from this area, so I don't have a whole lot of friends away from work. So if it's not family, I pretty much be by myself. But I'm talking about it all the time at work. I talk to people. I say, you ought to try this. If you're tired of this, from American sports,
yeah,
give it a try. And I'm not trying to put down American sports, although it sounds like it. It's just, I tell them this is something very interesting. If you watched it, that's the first thing I hear. Oh, it's like rugby. I said, no, it's nothing like rugby. It's nothing like rugby.
Yeah.
Other than they use a ball that's very similar. So
yeah. Exactly.
So it's a great sport.
So maybe with some of the guys from work, maybe you have a little barbecue at the house, and you and you put on the after you have watched it, you put on the 2018 grand final, and you give them the couple of the videos on here's a little explanation on how the game works, here's some of the rules, that type of thing, and now here's this game, or you watch a replay of one of the live games, because that's one of the nice things about the Watch AFL app. If you can't watch it live, it'll be there, so you could go, if you got up at, your game started at 3, and let's say you didn't get up until 4 to start watching, you could go back and start watching from the beginning at 3, and you could eventually get close to catching up if you fast forwarded through the commercials and that sort of thing. And that's one of the things you'll love also, is when you watch the games live or right after they've been broadcast. All the it's basically it's the actual feed from Australia, so you're getting all of the Australian commercials. which some of them are really cool. Yeah, you get a lot of McDonald's commercials, which they call Maccas over there. They call it Maccas. And I will tell you, they had a burger there that I don't know if I could eat it. It was a cheeseburger that had a slice of a beet on it. A beet.
Okay.
I have First of all, I'm not a much of a beet fan, but I've never contemplated putting a beet on a hamburger. I don't know. That's just not.
Yeah.
I don't know about that
Well,
one. Yeah.
I never put in bacon on a pecan pie, but it actually is not as bad as it may sound.
That's interesting.
The salt and the sweet.
Yeah.
Sugar beet gives the burger a slight sweet. I have no idea.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So, before we wrap this up here, now what I had been doing for a lot of the other folks is I've been giving them some trivia questions about their clubs. Well, that would be just downright mean to do to you, since you're
Well, that's okay. I can fail.
First of all, I haven't written any for the West Coast Eagles. Okay. But I did do a little bit of quick research this evening, and I pulled up 2 trivia questions about the 1982 and 1983 Georgia Southern Eagles.
Okay.
So, okay. I've got a couple questions here. So, 1982, first year coach. Who was he again?
Eric Russell.
Eric Russell. Yep, Eric Russell. Yep.
Russell. Yeah.
And do you remember what the record was that year?
Let's see. I was a senior in high school. And
you were a senior. You were a senior in '82.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I graduated, and seems like they played a club schedule, and I think they were like 1, 2, and 1 or something like that. I'm not sure. I know they played the military team out of Columbus called the Doughboys, and because I had a couple of friends.
They played Fort Benning, yeah.
Yeah.
And
the Fort Benning Doughboys, and I had a couple. Actually, I had 3 high school teammates that were playing on that team that year.
Okay.
And,
so you were there. You were there in '83, then, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I broke my foot. Never got to play, and I wound up losing a scholarship. And it's just the way business is, a small school don't have a lot.
Yeah.
And Georgia Power offered me a job, and I've been working for a power company for 37 years. So.
Okay. Now, do you remember who the homecoming game was against in 1983?
I have no idea.
It was
I can't
against,
even remember what it was last year. So
somebody named Mars Hill. Somebody named Mars Hill, and you beat him 35-0.
Yeah. I went to a couple of the championship games later on that they won. They were very interested. It was extremely cold, but
right.
Good game. And but I haven't been to a college football game in about 10 years. So I would love to go to Perth though and see a couple of AFL.
Well, that's one of those things that you and your wife have to plan for that. And I sit down all the time once the fixture comes out, and then I'll sit down with like the different online flight scheduling things and figure out, okay, if I was to go, how could I get a lot of bang for my buck? If I flew in on this day, and I could go see this game on this evening, and then this game the next morning, and then that one that evening, and then I could the following week I could go see these 3 or 4 games. So if I stayed there for 2 weeks, I could possibly see 6 or 7 games, and I think that maybe I have generated some really good acquaintances that might let me sleep on their couch, possibly. I think that may be the case. And if you're listening right now and you're flat out not letting me into your house to sleep on your couch, I apologize, because some of you may be ones I'm thinking, yeah, they might let me stay there, at least come over, have a cup of coffee and a meal or something. But maybe I've burned that bridge now.
Maybe not.
Yeah. We'll see. But hey, you know what? It's one last question. When you decided to go play at Georgia Southern, did your grandmother have any input in terms of whether or not you got to go play?
No, she wasn't. She didn't have any input on it, but she was extremely happy. She changed her mind when her grandkids came along. She was one of my biggest fans as far as watching me play. I played football and baseball, and she was one of my biggest fans. So
that's cool.
She didn't understand what went on, but she sure knew how to cheer. So
good deal. Yeah, I had my college roommate went on to become a graduate assistant coach at Youngstown State when Jim Tressel was there before he went on to Ohio State. And I went to a handful of games there to watch games while he was coaching. And one of the games I went to was against Alcorn State. I saw Steve McNair play there, phenomenal player. But the first game I went to, I'm sitting in the stands, and there's this elderly lady sitting behind me, and she's just driving me crazy because everything that's going on, it's she's back there, she's going 1st and 10, do it again, keep it going all the way. She did this for 4 quarters. And I talked to my buddy after the game, and after he got done with all of his coaching duties and such, and he said, where did you get these tickets? Who is this lady sitting behind me? Turns out it's Jim Tressel's mom that was sitting. So I had better seats than she did. Because her husband had been a longtime college coach at a small school in Cleveland. I think at Baldwin Wallace, at a small university there. So he'd coached there for decades, if I'm not mistaken. So football was in her blood. So it was it was just hilarious when he said, "Oh yeah, that's the coach's mom." And I didn't say anything to her. I didn't, there's no regret that I have in my life where I turned around to this woman and said anything that I feel bad about saying. I just was kind of shaking my head and trying to figure out who the heck she was. So I'm glad I didn't say anything to her. But anything we didn't cover that you want to dig into still? I think we touched on a lot of things.
I think so too. It was a pretty variety of information put out. Again, if I could just promote your show one more time, because I really have appreciated it. Like I said, I've listened to, I think, 64 episodes from last year, and it's just very good. It's a good show for people if they want to learn about the game and get a little insight on you and like I said, the business of the game, not just the game itself. So you have some very interesting people on there.
Well, don't listen to the episode I just released tonight yet, because I've got to go back and fix it when we finish up here. So evidently I screwed that up. Yeah. But let's finish with this. If somebody's listening that has run across the podcast and is not a footy fan, they like sports, what would you say to them to encourage them to check out this game?
I'd say if you like action, you need to watch just go on YouTube and YouTube some AFL action and just see it. And if you really like action, you just got to fall in love with the game, because it's just constant action from the start. Very very little downtime. And so it's just good. It's just the most active game that I've ever watched.
It is, and I would agree with you on that. And I think that's a great way to describe that there. And I think that would bring in some fans there. And like I said, I think your friends that you work with would probably love the game as well. And that way, if you convert a couple of them and your wife decides not to go to Australia, you've got somebody else to go with you.
Oh, she don't go, I'm not going.
Oh, okay. That's fair enough. My son wants to go with me. He's an officer in the Navy. And he said he wants to go sometime. that direction, but yeah, we'll see if that happens. We'll see. I've got to get my youngest through college right now, so she's got 2 more years of college left, so we need to take care of that first.
Yeah, I understand.
Yep. And then maybe we'll have a little bit of time to do some things like that then. So hey, you know what? I want to thank Jim White, the newest fan of the West Coast Eagles, for joining me tonight. Jim, I truly appreciated this. Your passion for the game is evident, and it's great to hear another American fan falling in love with the game, and it's humbling as hell that you're speaking as highly about my podcast. I can't thank you enough for that. This was an unpaid endorsement here. So.
Oh, what? Unpaid?
But, thanks for coming on, man. I truly appreciate it.
It's been my pleasure, Craig, and I wish you nothing but the best. Keep on doing the good work you're doing, and hope to talk to you again sometime.
Absolutely. So, again, thanks for coming on. Don't forget, if you'd like to sign up for the mailing list so that you get each new episode delivered to you first, there's a link to a short form in the show notes. If you'd like to sign up, I'll add you to the list, and you'll get the episodes as soon as they come out. Also, if you've got an idea for a show topic or someone that you think would be a great guest, or maybe it's you, reach out to me. Send me a DM on Twitter at Yank_on, or shoot me an email at yankonthefooty@gmail.com. And remember that you can find the podcast at yankonthefooty.podbean.com. It's also available on your favorite podcast hosting site. Now, I released an episode, while I'm recording this right here, I released an episode about an hour and a half ago. It was already up on the Apple podcast page, and that was fairly quickly that turnaround was there. Now, I generally listen to my podcast on the Stitcher app, and it was not there as of yet. I kind of like Stitcher. I've become accustomed to how it works. I don't, to be honest, I don't think it's as clunky as the Apple podcast site. So maybe you'd like to check that one out. And again, remember, you could reach me at yankonthefooty@gmail.com, at yank_on Twitter, or on Facebook and Instagram at @yankonthefooty. And you can also find the podcast on YouTube. Just search out my name, Craig Wessels. Now, I will have to admit, these episodes that I've been putting out over the last few days with the previews for the different clubs, I do not have these up on the YouTube channel yet. They will get there. They're just not there as of yet. I've been so busy doing interviews, so busy editing, recording intros and outros to the episodes that I just have not had a chance to do that yet, because it's a little bit cumbersome. It's not too time consuming, but it takes a little bit of time there. So remember, again, you can find any episodes that you're looking for on the those sites. And oh, by the way, one other reason to sign up for the email list, and I haven't mentioned this in a couple of episodes. I've done a few live episodes, and I really like them, but I think once the season begins, I would like to do those on like a Monday evening, my time, to kind of recap and look back at the games that have taken place during the course of the week. And while I will put out a note on Twitter and Facebook and that sort of thing saying, hey, a live episode is going to be starting in an hour and a half or whatever the case may be, I will also be sending that link to the people that are in the podcast list. And what they'll be able to do then is they'll have a link where they can actually come on and be a guest and talk to me and to one another on the show. I've really enjoyed the kind of freedom, if you will, that comes along with doing the live episodes. So I would like to do more of those. And if you want to make sure that you have access to those when they happen, you're going to definitely want to make sure that you're signed up on that email list, okay? Now, folks, we're fans of our clubs, okay? We are just a few days away from the 2021 fixture getting underway. I don't know about you, but I'm excited. I have right now 4 more episodes that I've recorded that I need to get edited. I have 2 more interviews that I'm doing tomorrow. I have another one that I'm doing the next day, a couple more later on in the week, and probably another 1 or 2 after that. So I'm trying to bring you some quality discussions with some people who love this game, They may not be the people that are in the media. They may not be the people who are, the best known guests, but they're folks that are just like you and I, folks that love this game and have a viewpoint, have something to say. So I hope you're enjoying the whole process that I'm putting together here with talking to just regular folks, okay? And those of you who are in Canada and the United States here, don't forget that Australian rules football, it is why they invented the DVR. Ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you so very much for listening. I do ask that you share this episode or your favorite episode, or both of them, quite frankly, with your friends and family out on your social media. That'll help to grow the podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, may your dribble kick never hit the post, and I will catch you later. This has been episode number 79 of A Yank on the Footy. Don't forget that you can reach me at Yank_on Twitter, or to yankonthefooty@gmail.com. Again, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening, and please consider sharing the podcast with your friends and family. And until next time, goodbye.